It's common to have applications that develop from content that is generated by your programming. Dynamically generating some of the content in your web apps, it's a great way of making your code a lot smaller and a lot more efficient. Let's take a look at how to dynamically add content in one of our web apps by creating a rating system for our lightbox we created in Chapter 6. Now, the first thing I want you to notice is that we have a lightbox preview window here that looks like it's the window that's part of Espresso. It's actually a window from Safari, because I want to show you how to use the develop tools in this chapter. Turn on the developer tools by going to the Safari menu, turning on preferences, and making sure that this show develop menu and menu bar is clicked on. Now I pulled up the programming from our lightbox in Chapter 6, and I'm going to add a few things. First, I'm going to add some styles for our stars so that I'll have a star that is white when it's not clicked and red when it's clicked. Now I want to create all those stars without having to type in a lot of programming under each list element. So I'm going to create a function that populates the web app from a bunch of programming. I'm going to add an onload handler and call a function that I'm going to create called populate ratings that will fill up each list element with a bunch of star ratings. I'm going to add a script after the scripts that I've already created to take care of populating the ratings. The first thing I want to do in this function is make sure that I find the element called lightbox, that's this element right here, and then I find all of the list items within that lightbox and store that list as a variable called items and list. Then I'm also going to find out how many elements or how many list items are on that list. Next, I'm going to create a function that adds a rating to each one of those list elements. This loop right here goes through each one of those items and creates a new element. The new element is the rating element, and it's attached to each one of those list elements with a class name of rating and a special ID for each one of the thumbnails. If I go to Safari and I refresh my browser, it looked like nothing has happened. If I pull up the developer menu and I choose the web inspector, I can click on the Elements tab and take a look at my web app in a little bit more detail. If I examine carefully each of the list items, I'll notice that I have dynamically generated this section right here for each one of the list items. As you can see, this code right here is not in my HTML and has been added by this program. Now I want to add all the stars inside that ratings element. To do that, I'm going to insert a separate loop that creates a new element, and as the loop goes through, adds 4 stars to the ratings element. Then it sets an attribute with an on-click handler that calls another function. Finally, it adds that to the current rating. If I save that and I go back to Safari, if I reload my browser, I can see that now I can see the stars. Open up your rating, and now you can see each one of the stars has a class and an on-click handler that runs a function. Since we're calling this function, we need to make sure that we create the function to handle the ratings that we add to each thumbnail. I want to put that function after the populate ratings function. In this function, I receive information from each star when it is clicked. Each star passes which picture, which one of these thumbnails we clicked on, along with which star was clicked on when the function got called. It's going to find each of those elements and then loop through each one of the stars and change the class name of each star depending on which star was clicked underneath the thumbnail. Now if we click on a star, you can see that all the stars before it change color. So we've added a great rating systems to our app by building a series of elements that were added dynamically. That allows us to minimize the amount of code that we write on an application and makes our application a little bit more interactive. Unfortunately, if you reload this page, all your star ratings are lost. Now, it would be great if we could take advantage of local storage to add that information into our web app so that it remembered it whenever the page was loaded again. We'll do this in the next movie.